A popular resort in the Iowa Great Lakes region had its water park closed by the state after a child nearly died by drowning in its pool last week. Now, the boy survived, but his case brought to light a series of concerns about that facility and led authorities to shut it down. Thanks for joining us. I'm Larry Wentz, and tonight that story is first at 10. Our Katie Koppel spoke to the boy's family and looked into the state's report after it closed the water park. She shares both of those stories with us tonight.
2 hours northeast of Sioux City, on the banks of East Lake Okoboji, sits Bridges Bay Resort. Promoted as a laid-back resort, it features an indoor and outdoor water park with amenities for kids and adults. It's also here where a Spirit Lake couple experienced a parent's worst nightmare.
It seems really kid-friendly when you look at it.
Will and Lauren Bramhall rented a party room at the indoor water park for Wednesday, June 16th to celebrate a few birthdays, including their 2-year-old twin boys, Russell and Miles.
I know for myself, like walking in, I was like, okay, this will be a good place to go after we're done swimming. It seems pretty secure. Like, it felt like a safe area to do that, and obviously it wasn't.
After spending a few hours in the pool, the group moved to the party room, but Miles had disappeared.
I start to look around the room, and I see Russell because I saw he had his little blankie that he always carries, but I didn't see Miles.
Will ran out the door and to the pool.
And I had a lifeguard, a female lifeguard, a blonde female lifeguard. She was across the way, but she saw me and said, "Are you looking for your son? He's in the lifeguard room." At that point, Miles was sitting with a young man, male lifeguard. He had like 2 towels wrapped around him, one over like his upper head and lower back or middle back, and then the other one was around his waist. He was holding him like this, so that he was like hugging him, trying to warm him up. All I could see were his legs and his arms, and they were blue purple. So I didn't know if he was breathing or anything.
Thankfully, Miles was breathing.
It seems as though he didn't breathe in any water. A swallow reflex kicked in, and he swallowed over and over when water entered his mouth. So his lung sounds were clear.
But Miles wasn't rescued by a lifeguard.
For some reason, I just said, well, I got my feet up on the hole where she was. I'm just going to go ahead and float around.
Scott Drider was at Bridges Bay with his young kids, and a moment's thought to float down the lazy river saved Miles' life.
I kind of noticed like somebody was kind of like doing a back float, or somebody was kind of like, I saw just like little hands coming out of the water and kind of like tips of feet. But the hands were kind of going up, and then they were kind of going down, they were kind of going up. And I just thought that was kind of funny, so I kind of paddled my tube a little faster. And as I got there, the hands were dipping under the water and there was no movement. So I got past the ladder and I thought, that doesn't look right. So I jumped off the tube and I went over and, sorry, kind of emotional. And so when I picked him up, he was not moving. And so I carried him over to the side by the ladder and rolled him to his side and was patting on his back, and I heard kind of a small gurgle, so I knew there was not complete air restriction. I mean, there was a kind of a gurgle, but not really any kind of noise. So as I patted on his back, water started to come from his nose and mouth, but his eyes were just really wide and kind of like distant.
Paramedics checked on Miles, and Will and Lauren, who both have medical training, took him home. Several days later, Bridges Bay water parks were closed, which the resort states is because of staffing. But a Facebook post caught Lauren's attention.
There had to be 16 trained lifeguards on duty that day, and in the citation it states that because the one certified lifeguard was in there that day,
In the office.
There were 0 certified lifeguards that day.
The parent of one of the lifeguards on duty June 16th took to social media, calling out Bridges Bay for not offering her son and several other staff members the proper lifeguard training for the job. She also called the state to report the drowning days after it happened, something the facility is required by law to report within 24 hours. According to the incident report filed by the Iowa Department of Public Health, Bridges Bay Resort was shut down via emergency closure order for failing to meet 4 Iowa codes for operation. One of the most alarming citations is failing to staff the aquatics facility with the minimum number of certified lifeguards as determined for the size of the facility. On June 16th, Bridges Bay had 1 certified lifeguard on the property, but they were not in the pool. 4 other lifeguards did not have active certifications. According to the emergency closure notice, Bridges Bay is legally required to have a minimum of 16 certified lifeguards on staff if both the indoor and outdoor facilities are open. The water park was closed to, quote, avoid the immediate danger to the public. They will remain so until the state determines it is safe for them to reopen.
One of the main reasons we decided to speak out about this was that we didn't know none of them were certified. There was one certified and she was not working the floor. She was in the office that day, which is terrifying as a parent.
Once Miles fell in the pool, Will, Lauren, Scott, and several others have determined that Miles likely passed by a lifeguard without ever being noticed in the water.
All signs point to that. My son was underwater drowning all the way in front of an untrained lifeguard from the complete one side of the building all the way to the other in perfect view of them because they face the entire building.
Will and I felt mainly at fault for this at first, but knowing that, he could have been pulled out sooner and that so many families bring their children to Bridges Bay a year and not knowing that it's not safe, that's why we decided to speak out about it.
What do you hope to see come from this?
Change. Don't let them work the floor until they are certified. You wouldn't put a nurse on the floor of a hospital without any type of certification at all. You put people's lives in their hands. It's the same thing with this. They need to be certified before they're even considered to be put on the floor. Why Bridges Bay thought that was acceptable is beyond me.
I feel really disgruntled towards them because of how they've been treating us. And
the fact that they deliberately tried to hide that it was a drowning that shut them down and that they didn't report it, that's very upsetting to me.
Bridges Bay has yet to publicly acknowledge the drowning incident, stating on their official Facebook page that because of the recent upgrades to the water park, it, quote, changed the scale for staffing, which we are addressing. I spoke with a lifeguard who assisted Miles once Scott pulled him from the pool. He says he and several other colleagues have quit Bridges Bay because of a lack of training and how this has been handled. While he and his mom, who alerted the state about the drowning, didn't speak to me on camera, they told me that they hope to see a positive change come from this incident. For Will and Lauren, they don't blame the untrained guards for what happened.
you can't blame someone for not knowing how to do something.
He did the best he could in this situation.
He
that
was very
on him.
comforting when we got there. And for a person who's untrained, being comforting is all you can do in a circumstance like that.
We're angry at Bridges Bay itself for this because it could have been prevented.
1 week later, Miles is doing just fine, maybe needing a few extra hugs from mom. But for Will, Lauren, Scott, and others who are calling out Bridges Bay for how this drowning was handled, their unified message is hope that the popular resort will recognize its mistakes.
We trust them to have a safe environment for our families. It's posted, they have lifeguards there. So, my message to them would be, make sure your staff are trained before you put them on the floor.
In this Spirit Lake home, Scott met Miles as the energetic, I'll bet sleepy 2-year-old he is. And 3 strangers reunited over a moment that could have changed so many lives forever.
We're just so grateful for him. Had it not been for him, our son probably wouldn't be with us today, which is the scariest part. So he saved our baby, and we're thankful for that.
And you can hear him in the other room.
Yeah.
At the Iowa Great Lakes, Katie Koppel, Siouxland News.
According to the emergency closure report, Bridges Bay was allowed to open for the summer beginning June 10th, with the requirement that they would have 12 certified lifeguards outside on duty when open. Siouxland News spoke with the general manager, who did not want to speak on camera, but did release a statement stating that they are working with the state, but quoting now, unfortunately, the labor market situation that has impacted many industries also has impacted ours and made obtaining the amount of staff required more difficult. Now, to read the full statement and view the emergency closure order, you can visit the story at SiouxlandNews.com.